I'm Tal Heinrich, spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister's office. Today, March 13th, 2024, day 159 of the October 7th war. These are 159 excruciating days that our 134 hostages have been stolen from us when Hamas's army of terrorists invaded our borders. I want to start our briefing today with a message from Ruby Chen, the father of Staff Sergeant Itai Chen, an Israeli-American citizen. Just yesterday, the IDF announced that Itai, who was abducted on October 7th, was killed by Hamas. His body is held by Hamas. I spoke to his family this morning. His father wants you to know that, quote, our mission has not been completed and we need to bring Itai and the other 133 hostages back to Israel. We hug Itai's family and the families of all fallen soldiers and victims of Hamas's barbaric attack. Now, an important update from COGET, which coordinates and facilitates humanitarian aid entering Gaza. Under the direction of the government, in partnership with COGET, last night, 6 humanitarian aid trucks entered the northern Gaza Strip in a convoy from the World Food Program. They entered via the 96th gate on the security fence close to Kibbutz Be'eri. The United Nations World Food Program is the world's largest humanitarian agency. This was a pilot to prevent Hamas from taking over the aid, as they often do. Israeli security checked the trucks at the Kerem Shalom crossing. The pilot's results will be presented to the government. We have been taking efforts to facilitate more aid into northern Gaza. Over the past 2 months, 202 aid trucks arrived in the north of the Strip, the overwhelming majority of which were successfully coordinated with the private sector. Once again, we emphasize there is no limit to the amount of aid that can be delivered into Gaza. Moving to our northern border, yesterday, numerous launches crossed into Israel from Lebanon. The IDF responded with artillery to the sources of the fire. IDF fighter jets hit Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon, and deep inside Lebanon, we hit significant Hezbollah compounds in Baalbek. In Syria, the IDF hit 2 Hezbollah military installations. These strikes, as ever, were based on precise incriminating intelligence. Now, to be clear, and for the avoidance of doubt, we hold the Syrian regime responsible for all terror emanating from its territory. In the last 5 months, the IDF has struck 4,500 targets in Lebanon. More than 300 terrorists are no more. We remind you that we have more than 60,000 Israeli residents displaced from the north following Hezbollah's aggressions. We will restore security for them and bring them home. And just released for publication, I can confirm that the IDF eliminated a significant Hamas terrorist in Lebanon, Hadi Ali Mustafa, advanced terror attacks against Israeli and Jewish targets around the world. He operated under the direction of Samir Fendi, one of Saleh el-Arouri's associates, who was killed together with him. As for the holy month of Ramadan, I remind you that Israeli security forces are investing major efforts to guarantee that the overwhelming majority of Muslim worshippers who wish to practice it peacefully will be able to do so. It is no secret that extremist terrorist organizations like Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad are trying to inflame the region even further. They have called for attacks on Israelis and Jews during Ramadan. They prepared plans to attack us. Some of these plans were thwarted, like a suicide attack earlier this week. However, today, 2 Israelis were injured in a stabbing attack at the Jerusalem Tunnels checkpoint. An IDF soldier and security guard neutralized the terrorist. The assailant has been identified as Muhammad Abu Hamed, 15-year-old, from the adjacent Palestinian village of El Khadel. In another incident that took place last night, border police officers neutralized 5 terrorists who endangered the lives of drivers on the outskirts of Jerusalem. They threw Molotov cocktails toward the road at a moving vehicle. The terrorists were apprehended. And also last night, we saw violent disturbances in the Shoafat neighborhood in East Jerusalem, which endangered the lives of both security forces and civilians. Rioters used explosives, Molotov cocktails, fireworks, and threw stones. And that brings us to the end of today's briefing. I will now address your questions in the chat.
Thank you, Tal. First question First question from David Clement at the News Forum. The EU's foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, accused Israel of using starvation as a war aim and compared it to Russia's conduct in Ukraine. Does the Prime Minister's office have a response to his comments?
It's a false, outrageous accusation. It's an outrageous comparison. I just said in the briefing that, and we've been saying it for months, that there is no restriction on the amount of food and water that are allowed to be delivered into the Gaza Strip. Full stop. So, and we've been seeing that over the course of the past 5 months, Israel had facilitated the entry of more than 300,000 tons of food and water and medical supplies into the Gaza Strip. I think we're talking about more than 16,000 trucks. Again, there's simply no limit. And we try to better the mechanism of aid distribution across the Gaza Strip. Remember, Israel's mission in what pertains to the humanitarian aid to the Palestinian civilians is one. We inspect the trucks coming in, and we have excess capacity to inspect those trucks coming in. Whenever there's a backlog of humanitarian aid waiting to be distributed, it's on the Gazan side of the border. And we saw that by relying on certain UN bodies, so to say, the mechanism hasn't been functioning, hasn't been working as it should, because they were reliant on Hamas. And by the way, even the United Nations itself, a body called OCHA, which is the Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs to Palestinians, had admitted in its own report that Israel has been taking efforts to increase the aid, and that last month there was an increase of a scale up of 48% of the humanitarian aid able to enter the Gaza Strip. So even the United Nations, by the way, itself says that Israel has been taking such efforts. But the absurdity of their report, I should say, is that they say that the distribution is problematic because of a diminished police presence in Gaza. But whose police? What was the police? That was Hamas. That is admitting by their words that they were reliant on Hamas distribution. So this is why we've taken creative new solutions to address this issue with international partners, with the United States and other international partners. And we've seen these air-dropped operations of humanitarian aid also reaching northern Gaza and other parts of Gaza. We're talking about there's this effort underway, the maritime effort, the pier in which we're coordinating with the United States. So, and just today, as I stated in the briefing, the trucks entering, reaching the northern Gaza Strip, also something, this pilot that we also want to see successfully carried out.
Thank you. Question from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. Mm-hmm. What do you say to Americans who are concerned that American troops are being placed in harm's way now because of the war with the construction of the pier near Gaza? And does Israel think that the pier will become a permanent port?
What I can say is that we are fully coordinated with the Biden administration on that. Next question.
Thank you. That was the last question.
Okay. Thank you. And that wraps up our briefing for today. See you here tomorrow. Thank you.